Hello, everyone. My name is Julie Hollinshead. I am an adjunct professor of finance at the Mike Ilitch School of Business. And I'm going to talk with you today about a topic that I am very passionate about because of the impact that it has on our lives. And that topic is building your credit history and why it matters. So here's the thing. When you rent an apartment or you buy a car or have a credit card or make almost any other financial decision, your credit score will be a factor in getting approved for a loan. And your credit score is based on your credit history. And building a strong credit history is one of the best things you can do for your financial well-being. Why is that? Because when you have a strong credit history, you've got more options and you have the potential to save more money. In fact, research done by a nonprofit in Boston showed that having a strong credit history and a high credit score can save you as much as $200,000 over the course of your lifetime. So, what is my credit history and why does it matter? Your credit history is the information contained in what's called your credit report. And your credit report has a record of all the money, that is, all the loans that you've borrowed, and how well you've done at repaying those loans. And your credit history affects many aspects of your financial life. Lenders use your credit history along with your credit score to determine if you meet their criteria for a loan. Of course, lenders will factor in other information like your employment history, what your income is, and a few other factors to determine the interest rate on the loan that you have applied for, and that they may approve for you, as well as the monthly payments. Insurance companies also may use information from your credit history. Just this week, I applied for a new homeowner's insurance policy. And what do you know? One of the first questions they asked me was, is it okay if I pull your credit history? So this stuff is real and it really impacts us. There are some other entities that will look at your credit history as well. For instance, if you rent an apartment, the landlord or the leasing company is more likely than not to pull your credit report. And they're looking at your credit report to make sure that they can count on you to pay the monthly rent. Sometimes even a potential employer will look at your credit report before making a hiring decision. So, what is a credit score? The credit history on your credit report is used by uh, the three credit bureaus to formulate a credit score. And a credit score is a three-digit number between 300 and 850 used by lenders to evaluate whether or not you are a good credit risk. In other words, whether you will repay a loan if they make the loan to you. Credit risk from the perspective of a lender means how well have you managed and repaid the loans you've had in the past? And lenders, again, what they're looking at your credit score for is to gauge the likelihood that you will repay the loan that you have requested. Now, credit scores also impact the terms that you will receive on the loan extended to you. And again, they're also factoring in other information such as your income, your employment history, your job stability, whether you rent or own a home, or whether you lease or own your car. They use all of this information to decide if you are responsible financially. It's important to understand how credit scores are developed. If you look at the left-hand side of this slide, you can see that the biggest factor impacting your credit score is your payment history. That represents over a third of your total credit scores. And um, what the payment history part of your credit score is getting at is how have you done at making loan payments on time? This would include loan payments for credit cards, for like an installment loan on your car, on mortgage loans, and that kind of thing, any kind of credit that you have. And the longer the history you have, that is a track record of making your loan payments on time, the more positive this part of your credit score will be. Now, one thing I want to point out to you is, let's say you make a payment after, the due date, and that late payment is more than 30 days past the due date. Well, that's kind of a hurtful thing because it takes a lot of points off your credit score making a late payment. And it takes quite a bit of time to get those points back. A late payment can stay on your credit report anywhere from 5 to 7 years. So the other big part um, that's that's used to determine your credit score is how much money you owe. And that part of your score represents about 30% of your total credit score. And what they're looking at here is the overall loan amounts that you owe and how many loan accounts you have. And within this amounts owed, a key part of what's driving this part of the score is what's called the credit utilization ratio. And what credit utilization means is the percentage of available credit that you're using. So here's an example. Let's say you only have one credit card and it has a credit line of $1,000 and you're regularly using $500 of that $1,000 approved line. Your credit utilization is 50%. Now, lenders prefer that a person's credit utilization is below 30%. Why? Because from the lender's point of view, it shows that you're able to cover your daily living expenses without being overextended on credit. And therefore, you are not viewed as a high risk of making late payments or potentially defaulting on the loan overall. And for your credit score, what these three credit bureaus do individually is they add up all the money, all the amounts you have outstanding on your credit cards and divide that dollar amount by the total amount of approved credit on all of your credit cards. The other factors impacting your credit score, as you can see on this pie chart on the left, are the length of your credit history, the types of loans you're using and have used, and the number of new credit accounts you've opened in the last 12 months. And generally speaking, a longer credit history is positive for your credit score because honestly, it gives the lenders more data on how you handle credit. And lenders like to see people who keep accounts for a long time and consistently make their payments on time. This slide shows you what the FICO credit scores are and how they break down. FICO is the most widely used credit score by lenders. And what this chart shows is for the three-digit credit score, what does it mean? A credit score below 580 means the person has a poor credit record. It signals to credit issuers that the person might hold high amounts of debt or is struggling to make debt payments generally. any score above 670 is considered a good score because consumers in this range, 670 and higher, have demonstrated that they pay back the loans on time. They're dependable borrowers. And people who have a score higher than 800 are considered the most dependable borrowers because not only do they make payments on time, but they pay off their debt in full. And so they're viewed as highly responsible in terms of using credit. I put this slide in because it shows the difference that a strong credit history can make on loan terms and how much money a strong credit history and high credit score can save you. In this example, with three people, all three people are borrowing $16,000 for 60 months or 5 years. Looking at the top line, what you see is that James has the highest credit score of the three people. His credit score is 800. And because of his high credit score, the interest rate he's charged is 3%. And contrast that with Eula on the third line. Her credit score is 525, and that low credit score means that she's a risky borrower. So therefore, lenders charge her 22% on that $16,000 loan. So Eula, when you look over to the column on interest paid, Eula over the 60 months is paying over $10,000 in interest, or almost 10 times more than James, who's paying a little over $1,200 over that 60-month period. So all of this really just brings home why building a strong credit history can be so beneficial to your financial well-being. If you have a strong credit history, you can borrow money at lower rates and have more money to save to put towards something that's important to you. We want to be savvy on what's impacting our credit. Again, your credit history is used to develop your credit score. And the credit history in your credit report will have a record of the types and dollar amounts of credit that you use, how long the accounts have been open, and whether you've paid your bills on time. Your credit history is based on what your credit card and your other creditors have reported to the three credit bureaus, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experience, about whether you've made regular on-time payments. And your credit report, again, is what's used to develop your credit score. And it's the lenders and others who use this credit score to determine if they want to do business with you. So we want to know what's on our credit report. It's in all of our best interests to make sure that the credit reports that these three credit bureaus have on us, that these reports are accurate. Because each credit bureau, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, they develop their own unique credit scores for each one of us. So how do you check your credit report? You can go to this website, www.annualcreditreport.com, and request a copy of your credit report from each of the credit bureaus. And if you find an error, make sure you report it. They might ask you for supporting documentation. I know I have pulled mine, and there have been some errors in terms of my employment history. So I've just contacted Equifax in one case and said, "Hey, I never worked here. Take that off my credit history, please." But there's a lot of other information besides your loan repayment history on a credit report. Um, it's going to show the amount of each loan, again, whether you've made payments on time or missed any payments. It's going to have the names of current and past employers and any other what the credit bureaus view as publicly available information of record on you. So, for instance, if you filed for bankruptcy, that's going to be on your credit report. And the length of time that information stays on your credit report depends on the type of information it is. Late payments on a credit card can stay on your credit report for up to 5 to 7 years. Bankruptcy stays on your credit report for 10 years. Here are some steps you can take to build and maintain a good credit history. Try not to borrow more than you can pay off in full each month. And another thing that we can do is make sure we make our payments on time. Always check your statements, for your loans to know when the due date is. Use your phone calendar to set up electronic reminders to make the payments. You can even automate the payments, through your bank app. So those are two things. Another thing is to keep your credit line utilization low, or um, maybe even pay down or pay off your credit cards completely. If by chance you get behind on a bill payment or miss a payment, make sure to make those payments as soon as possible. One other thing you can do is review several months worth of the bills that you're paying and list those bills in order of when they're typically due. Like I've done this, and what I've found and what people typically find is that the due dates typically fall into two groups. The first group of bills being due near the beginning of the month, and the other ones due later in the month. And as soon as you receive your paycheck, pay the bills that are due prior to your next paycheck. And if you don't have enough money in your account to regularly pay your bills before your next paycheck, don't shy away from contacting your creditors, like your credit card company, to ask if they could change, the payment due date so that it fits easily into when you will be receiving your paycheck. Because you always want to make sure you have sufficient money in your account to pay your bills when they're due. Another thing you can do to build a good credit history is don't apply for a lot of credit cards in a short amount of time, because applying for a lot of credit cards in a short amount of time can lower your credit score. And right now, we're approaching the holiday season, and this is really a good time to review your spending, because most of us spend more this time of year than other times of the year. And I often think about for myself, and when I talk with friends and clients, I think about developing a spending plan for holiday gifts so that you don't get surprised with a huge credit card bill in December and January that you cannot pay off in full. Two of the most common blemishes on a person's credit history are missed or late payments and high credit utilization. Whether or not you have negative information on your credit report, the best thing you can do for your credit history and your credit score is to make your debt payments on time every time. Once the existing negative information starts to age and move lower on your credit report and eventually be removed from your credit report, you'll be in a better position to have a better credit history and a higher credit score. And if your credit history and scores aren't as high as you'd like because of a lot of credit card debt. As soon as you're able, pay down some of that debt and ultimately pay off your credit card debt. It's expensive, what they charge us for that credit card debt. And as you pay down and pay off your debt, you'll see that your scores will improve because of the reduction in the credit utilization ratio. It's really worth it to monitor your credit score and credit report and make sure, like we were talking a moment ago, that the information on your credit report is accurate. Anything that's inaccurate, you want to get it corrected as soon as possible. Um, as we enter the holiday season, make sure you're making purchases on websites that are secure and be very vigilant with your account information. Use your mobile apps, I should say, to set up alerts to notify you when credit card charges are hitting your account. And so you also know what your balance is and when payment due dates are approaching. If you lose your credit card, use the app on your phone to turn it off. And you can even take the extra step of calling the credit card company. And one other thing, if you are still using physical credit cards and you get a new credit card, and the one that you did have has expired, don't just throw that expired credit card in the trash. Cut it up so that nobody can get your credit card information. This totally surprised me when I read this, that according to Experian, that is, one of the credit bureaus, there are more than 100 million Americans who don't have access to credit, either because their credit scores are too low or because they don't have enough credit history. One of the problems that people encounter is that when they're paying their rent, or let's say paying their phone bill or streaming bill on time each month, the companies they're paying, like the Netflixes of the world, excuse me, aren't reporting this responsible behavior to the credit bureau, so it can be acknowledged on the person's credit reports and therefore reflected in their credit scores. A way to overcome this is to sign up for Experian Boost by signing up for a free Experian membership. And when you do this, the Experian Boost program will enable you to get credit for things like your utility bills, your cell phone bills, your streaming payments, so that these payments are recorded on your Experian credit history and credit report. According to what I've been told, you will see almost an immediate increase in your credit score if your payments have been on time. And the other benefit of signing up for Experian Boost is that you can access your Experian credit report for free, get your FICO score, and get credit monitoring and alerts from Experian at no charge. So the bottom line of all of this is that there are concrete actions we all can take to build and maintain a strong credit history and a high credit score. Building a strong credit history and using credit responsibly brings many financial benefits. A good credit history and a strong credit score open up many options and can save you hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. And when you couple these benefits with saving and investment discipline, you can build your wealth meaningfully. Thank you so much.